Miroslav Petrovic, thank you so much for coming on the Inner Edison Podcast. It's nice to have you here today. All the way from
Thank you for having
Australia.
me. Yeah. Far away.
Far away. But now how long you came from, so you're in Australia, but where did you come from? How did you get to Australia? Let's put it that way. There's what I'm trying to
So I was born in Bosnia, which was Yugoslavia at the time. And that was 87. I came here in 92. So I was about 5 years old. Very, very long time ago.
By the way, my first wife was Yugoslavian. Next thing you know, she was Serbian, and I mean, after the whole fall and everything, how everything split up. So I totally understand the region. I totally understand everything about the different types. Each group that's there, and I totally understand that because I had to live it for about 7 years.
Yeah, well, that's good. It's a complicated region in the world. Let's just call it that way.
We're all complicated.
Exactly.
I mean, look at the United States. I mean, we're going at each other's throat right now because of the election. So,
yeah. I mean, for me, I think the saddest thing is sometimes we find the most animosity with people that are most like us. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the things is, and this is all I'll say about politics, is the people in power or the politicians want us to fight against each other, so we don't see what they're doing. And if you go back in history, they always have done that to get people to fight amongst themselves so they can control them. Because if you're fighting among yourself, you're not watching what they're doing and how they're controlling you. And that's why we need to get along no matter what. So eventually, hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a huge thing that you came from Yugoslavia at age 5 and you got into Australia. I need a little bit of background from you just so people know who you are, because I know all the other stuff about you because I read your bio and everything, but I don't always like to tell people everything about you. I like to come out throughout the show.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah.
You want more of the personal stuff or more of the business stuff?
Well, just quickly personal, and then we'll get into the business.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're linked anyway, as we were chatting before this started. So on the personal side, I used to stutter a lot when I was a child. Sometimes I still stutter. But basically, I found out only recently what I had was selective mutism, which means in certain situations I wouldn't speak at all. Around my friends and family, I was fine. You wouldn't really pick anything. But any kind of situation outside of that, at school, etc., I basically just wasn't talking or hardly talking if I was. And I think people sometimes assumed I was stupid or, not all there or something like that, which wasn't the case. Often it would just be like my throat would get so closed up that I wouldn't be able to get any words out. And with that would come a lot of like negative self-talk, which I wasn't aware of at the time. It was just my identity. It was very like probably shameful and, self-depreciating and all this other stuff. It was just like a really shit place to be in. Until at some stage I discovered meditation. I would have been about 18 at the time. And when I discovered meditation, I was like, Jesus, why didn't no one tell me about this? I've lived for 18 years. No one told me it's possible to feel this way. And I started asking myself the question, how can I feel more this way, but not have my eyes closed and sitting on a cushion? Like I want to live my life while feeling, normal. And what started coming back quickly, like both internally, my teachers, even my friends around me started saying, Miroslav, can you please teach us? And I was like, this is confronting. I'm the kid that's scared to speak, one-on-one, let alone in front of a group of people. And eventually I just said, I have to do this. And as I started doing it, I found a lot of relief inside of it. Like it started coming to me very naturally, being in the seat of the teacher, which quickly turned to, speaking and presenting and doing workshops and all. Well, some of this took longer time, but essentially that was the path. It's like, okay, if you're ready to do that, here's more people. Here's a bigger stage. Here's another bigger stage. And it just kept growing from there. So in a way, that biggest pain I had, which was around not speaking, became the pathway out to discover myself. And now my whole business has been built on that, specifically teaching people to speak. And even when I was just speaking to a potential client yesterday, I'm like, realize my approach to speaking is not traditional speaking. What we're looking at doing is tapping into the fear that's sitting underneath the surface. And that fear is showing up in all areas of your life. And when I get you on stage to work with you, we have direct access to the fear. And what we're doing is allowing that fear to move through you so you can actually say and do the things you need to say and do. It's not about slapping speaking techniques on top of what you're doing. It's about having you be authentically and confidently yourself on stage. And then you can talk about whatever you want from there.
Do you help them create their speech when they're on stage?
I
We'll help
can, but
them.
I'm not really interested in that. It's like me helping you create what you're going to talk to about a friend over a coffee. It's like I want you to be able to be completely natural yourself. And then yes, we craft a speech and there is a structure that we utilize. But a lot of the time people approach speaking like they're trying to script something, or like if I prepare the speech, it's going to have me be really safe and I won't have to really connect with the audience because I know everything back to front, which is okay. Like if we need that to be safe, it's okay. But for me, that's like a certain level of safety. And what I'm looking for is how do we create safety where you can be yourself on stage the way you would be if you're bringing guests into your living room, like that kind of relationship with the audience. And then yes, from there we look at refining it. What does the audience need to walk away with? What stories from your lifetime do you have to bring in? Do we have data to back this up? But that comes as a secondary to being regulated and being able to connect to the people in front of you.
No, I get all that, but I know a good guy who speaks on stage and he helps people speak on stage. And one of the things he says to do is have 5 starters, meaning that if you lose your train of thought, you have these 5 memorized things that start. You can just go to them real quick and then get back into what you're trying to talk about. I just didn't know. And he helps you, he tells you to create it, send it to him in a video, and he goes through it and say, okay, make these changes, stop saying right. Stop doing the and stop doing those little things that we don't think about. But when you do 10,000, and I always tell people, you want to get good on stage, start a podcast or do lives, do a ton of lives. I've done 10,000 hours of lives, and you get to a point where, and I do live radio. I'm also on talk radio powered a local station here that helps me. That I didn't realize how much that would help me later on 6 years later with everything else I'm doing. And it's you just whatever makes you uncomfortable, you have to do.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, isn't it?
No, that's the only way you grow. I mean, it's the same with lifting or exercising. All that's uncomfortable. You
Exactly.
have to do something because if it's too easy, nothing good in this life is easy.
I mean, that's a great metaphor you said that if you're always lifting 10-kilo weights, like you're going to get bored. There's no point in doing it anymore. Your muscles aren't growing. You're just wasting time at the gym.
Right.
And I think it's the same with this. It's like if you want to grow, you have to find that next sense of discomfort and edge and growth.
Yeah, and keep challenging yourself to bigger audiences and bigger other things. But it's getting out there. A good friend of mine is Brian Galke. He does subtle skills, which is he can tell you everything about you by your eyebrows, your nose, your ears. I mean, like shocking. And he learned this, and that's how he got on stage. And he worked for a company, and he was not in the mailroom, but basically and then he moved all the way up to vice president of sales because of learning this process and understanding. He could set his presentation for the person. He could look them up on LinkedIn, know exactly how to talk to them and move forward. And that's what allows him, because he's an introvert. He hates being on stages. He hates all that stuff, but he's able to focus on other people just because of that kind of thing. And so I'm just going to add it because it might be something you maybe I'm not trying to sell his product. I just think it helps so much to understand. I did it, had him come on a thing and had all my employees, and he did each one of them. There was only one who said, you're about 50% right. And I took it as that's 50% more. I know how to speak to you. I know what you want. I know how to get to you. And there's other people, he'll say, he can know exactly a certain person. He'll say, all you want is someone to thank you for what you do. And they start crying just because he knows that person, who that person is by certain things he sees on them. And
it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's like learning body language and other things, but this just helps you connect with other people. And, certain things like that, when you're on stage, you're wanting to connect with people. Well, not necessarily. Most people just want to get off stage, but then you have the people who love to be on stage, who crave it. I don't crave it. I just know it's part of what I need to do.
Yeah. And I find a lot of into those two categories.
Yeah. I enjoy understanding and having interviews and getting to know the person on the other side and why they do what they do. See, with you, I know why you did what you did, because it helps you overcome your stutter. And then now you're helping other people do the same thing in other ways.
Yeah, completely. I also feel there's like, for me personally, there's There's a pain in the way things have been done. Like, I don't know about your experience in high school or primary school, but I was mostly bored the whole time. Like, I remember how much time I spent doodling and just not being engaged and being like, this is my norm. I've spent, whatever we spend in school, 15 years or something, being completely disengaged. And the education system is kind of like set up for disengagement for whatever reason. They're overworked. The classes are too big, like all the things. But there's also passion inside me of what does it mean when at a younger age we start connecting children to their passion, what they really want to do, and educating towards that. Like I say, if someone taught me meditation and sales in school, my life would have been so different. Just those two skills.
Yeah, but it's hard for people in school to be able to get, hey, try meditation. I mean, most kids won't even think about it. But most schools, and this is going to get me in trouble, but are set up for girls, not for boys. Boys, we need to move around. We can't just sit there all day. That's not what we do. And that's why, like you said, you're disengaged. Most guys are disengaged at school because you have to sit there. That's not what we do. That's why I did so well. Nobody thought I was going to go get my bachelor's and master's and move on and do things that I did. They thought I was going to be a blue collar worker because I enjoyed auto body, mechanics, welding, all the shop stuff. Even though I enjoyed school to a certain point, I enjoyed that better because it kept us busy doing stuff. So if they could figure that out. So I'm sorry, I missed you, sir.
What had you go back and do all the education? Like you said, the MBA and.
When I was in the service, I was able to, I decided that, so when I joined the service and, and my counselor's like, you're going to be a blue collar worker. You never do any of this stuff. And I went join the service. I was in the medical field, realized I wanted to get in sales. I started going to college in the service, got my bachelor's, and then started working on my master's, and then finished it up when I got out. Now, would I recommend everybody to do that? No, you don't necessarily need that for most stuff that we do these days. But it was one of those things when I went through, it was what you needed to do. Everybody had a bachelor's, and then everybody had to get a master's, and then everybody had a master's, and now I got to get a PhD. And no, thank
you. Yeah, I hear you there.
I mean, did you go to university at all?
Yeah, I did. I was actually considering doing a PhD maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I'm very seriously considering it. Like I was looking and interviewing different whatever they're called, supervisors. But yeah, life had a different plan. My business started taking off, and I'm like, the reason I'm doing a PhD is to be, better placed to be able to run this business. And basically, life was like, you're just ready to go now. So I just kept going with the business. I've laughed about it. I'm like, maybe at some stage I'll go back and do a PhD. But I was just speaking to another guy as well, and it's like, if you know what you're doing, you don't even have to be the person with the PhD. As long as you can find someone that shares a similar message and is willing to do the research around it, it's like just stay in the track of what you're good at.
Well, it just depends on where you are in life and if you need it. And some people want to get it so they can be called doctor. Other people just, it. For me, when I got married, this last time that I've been married for will be 20 years in November. When we first got together, she only had her bachelor's. She's a nurse or a registered nurse, so she went and got her master's. She's a little competitive. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to get my PhD now. And then I thought about, I'm not going to get my PhD. What a waste of my time and money. And what's it going to do for me? Am I going to work at a university? No, I can teach now if I wanted to. And what I would teach, I don't need to be lecturing people to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's just so many other ways to teach these days. I mean, make courses, you don't need to have and most people don't want that. Most people want to go to YouTube and find out how to do stuff.
Exactly. I mean, I did a teaching degree as a postgrad. And when I went in to do my rounds, I was like, I love teaching, but I don't want to be teaching in high school. And so much props to the teachers that are doing this. But I'm like, I could just feel what I was here for was a bit different than that. And then maybe another 10 years after that, I went back and I studied education research, like to write a thesis on it. And that's probably the most fulfilling experience I've had of the academic system. Actually researching and just writing about something I'm passionate about, which is pretty niche in the education space. And in my sense, it was just like what happens to audience engagement when we bring more presence into the room. So the more present we are as teachers or speakers or facilitators, what effect does that have on the people we're working with? And I mean, that was hard. I still think of writing that thesis is probably the hardest thing I've done, but ultimately really rewarding. I was like, I just get to spend 6 months digging really deep into writing this thing. So,
and you wrote a book.
it.
I'm jumping ahead since you're talking about writing. You wrote a book, right?
I did, yeah.
What's the name of your book?
The book's called Them Goosebumps. Utilize the power of presence to own the stage of communication.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah,
Put it on your Podmatch thing.
Oh, really? Is it not on there? Okay.
No, it just says you've written a best-selling book.
Okay, that's a good point. Thank you for that.
So people, if you don't know, we go through Podmatch to get people to get on podcasts. You can go through their bios and everything, and it's just much easier than getting thousands of emails. People wanting to be on your podcast. It's just an easier way to do it. Because what I do is I go there first, because when people go, hey, I want to be on, okay, great, we'll see this, and I look at it. I would have asked you to send me a copy of your book, and I would have read it, and then of course I would want you to sign it, because I always want them signed. And then if it's a good book, I'll buy a copy and give it to somebody else. So I'm not so cheap that I want a free book from you. I just like to have signed copies of every author who's been on my podcast.
Well, I'm happy to send you a copy of the book, and you can let me know what you think after this as well.
Okay, I will. Just because a lot of people want to come on to promote their books, and I'm like, if you're going to promote your book, you have to send out the book to the podcast person. You know,
it's
and
a much better conversation as well.
Yeah. And don't drop ship it. Please sign it and personalize it. It just makes it so much better. And I'm just giving advice for anybody who writes a book and does stuff. I mean, because I wrote a book called Financial Freedom: Building Personal Wealth Through Home Ownership, and it's about getting a home loan, but it's more than that. And I send them out to all my clients and everybody else, but I sign every single one of them and put a little note in there and send it out. It's just so much personal. It just helps out so much.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a really nice touch. And I think the more we go into the AI world, the more those touches are going to be valuable, because anyone can write anything now. But taking the care and the time and expressing that is really what sets it apart.
I think the whole AI is just going to help us write better, but people are going to want to connect more with the other person, and they're going to want to do it through video, or because they don't have time to come in your office. So they're going to want to see who you are, see where you're at, and they're going to want that personal touch all the way through. So I see more connection that way moving forward, because of what you just said. Everything's going to be so untouched. And plus, I think the pandemic changed that.
Yeah.
No?
I'm just thinking, I think like recently I've been writing proposals, and I was like, at what stage do we get to the point where, something that used to take 4 or 5 hours took me about an hour using ChatGPT. And I'm just thinking, at what point are we just going to say, is there any point to doing this? Like, you're asking me to do stuff, the AI is doing it, but not just in my industry, in all industries. Like,
right.
We're going to be testing our ability to get AI to do stuff for us, which doesn't have any merit whether we're able to do it. Like, me being able to write this proposal is no longer a merit on my skill set. So it's like, at what point are we kind of like, we're just jumping through hoops here, guys? And not just this paperwork. I mean this with a lot of paperwork moving forward.
No, I mean, everything, because I have everything rewritten to a certain point. I take out the standard line that they put on everything, of course, but it's just like, can I make this any better? Boom. Wow. That's a lot, just that much better. I do have a master's degree, but I hate writing. And just like reading, I hate reading. I prefer to listen to all the content I do. That's just me. I want it when I'm out walking or exercising. I want to listen to things. I don't want to sit there and read a book because I'll fall asleep.
Yeah, nice.
Well, I don't know if it's nice, but I'm just saying it's just, that's, because if you do so much stuff, you're just, you sit down to be done. My wife reads so much, but I listen to so much. So it's just however works better for you. Hey, I was wrong. It was down there on further down on the introduction at the last part. So I would just move it up to where it says, to where it's about you, and it says you've written best-selling book. I would just put it there, blah blah blah, and then that way we could see it. That's just my 2 cents. Have ChatGPT rewrite that for you.
Great.
You're laughing because I had it write all my stuff. I had it rewrite all my website stuff, all the stuff I've ever done to see if it could be any better. And of course it was better.
Yeah, yeah. But I was thinking recently, I had someone help me with writing my bio, and I think I paid something like $3,000 for copywriting. And now I'm going through it. I'm like, ChatGPT does this in a fraction of a second, and it refines it in ways where I can be really clear, and it's going to give me multiple iterations quickly. Make it a bit sharper, make this bit a bit friendlier. Like I'm just telling it what I need from a directional viewpoint, and I'm getting iterations so quickly. And I'm like, that used to do that with a person would take a lot of time.
Yeah, because then they have to come up with it. I mean, ChatGPT I've been using it since it first came out in that November. It was in 22 or 21, whenever it first came out. And I was like, wow, this is going to change everything. And I showed everyone, look at what you could do with this. And, and then now when we do, I use Cast Magic. Have you ever heard of Cast Magic?
No.
Okay, Cast Magic is a software where you drop in your MP3 file and it transcribes it, but not only transcribes it, it puts it into different segments. Like it'll make all these different social media posts for you. It'll make the introduction to your podcast. It'll do the intro, outros for you so you can just go record them. Because that's what I do. After we get done with the podcast, I go and record an intro and outro for that podcast specifically, but it creates, I don't have to spend the time to do it. I don't have to hire somebody to spend the time to tell me what I should be saying. It does it. Gives me titles, SEO. It gives you so much stuff. And if you want, and this is my affiliate link, trycastmagic.com, but it's amazing. And the same with Opus Clips. Use Opus Clips, right?
Yeah. I use Opus, yeah. Opus is amazing.
So
how do you spell Cast Magic? C or K?
I'm sorry?
How do you spell Cast Magic?
C. Yeah, CAST Magic, Cast Magic.
Amazing. Yeah, Opus Clip is amazing. I've done a lot with Opus. When that came out, I was like, this is just a game changer right now.
And today the auto AI, add video, B-roll, and all the other stuff you can do with it is just, and again, what this does is this should allow your normal editor so much more time to do so many more things because I use it for myself and I do a lot, but I can't handle it anymore. I'm working with a VA to get them to take over this stuff, because I took it over to make sure how I wanted it a certain way and to figure out how that is. Because unless you've done it, you don't know how long it really takes. You don't know how much time they're wasting and how much they're doing that. And that's the same thing in my business. I've done everything in the mortgage industry. So I know how long something takes. So when someone tells me, okay, it's going to take me an hour, I'm like, why is it taking you an hour? That should take you a minute. And it's because they want it whenever they get around to it. Not the fact that it just takes that much time. Yeah, but I actually had ChatGPT help me write 2 other books. So yeah, I mean,
I was thinking it's going to be fun. I saw a guy recently who's written 8 or 9 books, and he said the last 2 or 3 I just wrote with ChatGPT.
Yeah, I know a guy who's like, I wrote a book with ChatGPT, and I put it on Amazon, told everybody this was done with GPT. Here's my book. And it to me, there was a certain thing I wanted, and it helped me write the chapters, and I cleaned them up, and then I had it rewrite the chapters, and then all the different things. Because I did a speech on so in sales, people don't buy because they just don't know. And what I mean by that is that's KNOW. They just they don't have the knowledge. So I always hated that statement in sales. So I came up with things, knowledge needed to overcome waiting. That's what they haven't done. That's what NO stands for. So I did a whole book on that. So
do you think like sometimes I wonder about this. Does it have less merit because it's been done by AI?
I don't know. Or it should have more.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really bad books out there.
Oh, there's a ton. I mean, I had someone help me write it and do the cover and do everything on my book because I wanted it amazing. I didn't want, I've seen some of these self-published books and you're like, really? That's your cover? That's your, and it's like, so I don't know. The question really is, if you do it with ChatGPT and you change it, do you have to tell everybody you did it with ChatGPT?
I don't think so. Like I had a buddy message me recently. Well, actually, the two people I had this conversation with in the space of like a month. They're basically hiring a ghostwriter. No one knows that the ghostwriter wrote it. And there's this question for me. It's like, what am I looking for from a book? Do I want to know that the author actually wrote it? And what does it mean to be an author if you don't actually have to write the book? If it's perfectly legitimate for a ghostwriter to hang around with you and write a book about your life, is ChatGPT any different? Um, and would it even do a better job? Because if you don't like the tone, in a moment you can change that. If you don't like the tone of a ghostwriter, that's going to take you a lot of time and money to change.
Yeah, but for most ghostwriters, what they do is they ask you questions, they have you talk, and they just take down what you say and then put it together is what most ghostwriters do. They don't just come up with your book because then
Yeah,
that's
of
not
course.
a right. So I mean, for most people to have help write their book, I'd say 80% of the books have ghostwriters. It's a lot because people don't write well. If just because I don't write well doesn't mean I don't have the knowledge and stuff that to get out that I need to put in a book.
Mm,
If somebody can talk to me and go through, that's what my book was. It was all my ideas. That was how I wanted it. And so I talked to my writer every day, once a week, and we went through different chapters and I was explaining it to her and what we were going to, and she was taking notes and, they type like my wife just so fast, which I can't do. And then it was in my tone. It was me.
that's
And
good.
look, I gave it to my wife and she's like, That's amazing." And that's what a good ghostwriter does. And it's doesn't matter who helps you, and it doesn't matter at all. I mean, it's as long as it's your words, because if
Your
it's your
material.
words through your voice or your words that you type on your hands, what's the difference?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm just seeing the possibility for this to be completely done through AI. Like you could just talk to an AI the way you would a ghostwriter as well. I think we're going
Well,
to be living in a crazily different world over the next decade.
yeah, well, and the question really is will we get to a point where we won't want that? Where we want proof it was written by somebody instead
Mm,
of, because I mean, get to a point, why even do books then? Because anybody can do
exactly.
them. They're going to be free.
Yeah. There is a sense, I got married a few months ago, and there's this
Congratulations, by the way.
tradition. Sorry.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, there's this tradition in Serbian culture where when you're inviting people to your wedding, you have this ceremonial flask, and you go from house to house. Usually, the groom and his father, and sorry, not the groom. It would be someone from the groom's side. So usually, it could be the father or his brother or something like that. But it has to be a male. Would go and invite people by foot. You don't call them. You don't message them. You knock on their door. You say hi. It's obvious it's going to be a celebration because you're holding this decorated vessel. You go in, you invite them. They usually offer some kind of gifts like flowers or chocolate, or they put money to decorate the vessel, and off you go to the next person. It's very slow. And I was speaking to a woman recently, and she's like, "Yeah, one of the things that's in the same tradition is all the bridal party will have a sachet." And she's like, "Now most people buy this." She's like, "Traditionally, the woman would sit there and sew the sachet, and sew like the names of the bridal party into the sachet." And I was like, the amount of love and time that's poured into that, you can't replace. And you can't replace what it means, like in my case, even to fly halfway across Australia and to go and invite people in person as opposed to just sending them a wedding invite in the mail. Like how much more that communicates. And I wonder if at some stage we're going to have a revival towards slowness and towards things that really matter, as opposed to like, yes, we can get it done quickly, but what's the deeper intentionality behind the work we're doing?
I think we're already there. I think it's already happening. Because I'm in the mortgage industry, so I deal with people all the time. They want, all right, so I can do a transaction in like 9 days, which is unheard of. And that's part of it. That part is fast, but the connection with each person is more valuable. And the conversation, I talk to everybody on the phone, and everybody's like, some people like, don't leave a voicemail, so you have a text because it's not 2019 or whatever. And it's like, I have to leave what I'm telling you so you understand what I'm saying, because text can be taken wrong, and you don't, it's the text is taken in your frame of mind, who's receiving it, not the person who sent it. So there's certain, and so I've seen that people understand there's certain conversations we have to have. I deal with people who won't pick up the phone and call somebody. They'll send an email, they'll send a text, they can't get an answer. I'm like, did you pick up the phone and call them? Oh, well, it's like, why? And that's what I'm saying. I think we have to go back to that type of communication. I know there's a whole generation in a certain age group has no understanding of that. They're only used to texting, but even they will have to get to that point.
Yeah, it definitely communicates more. Just the fact that you're willing to call is saying something that your words can't say.
Yeah. Well, it'll take me 2 minutes on a phone call that somebody will have a half hour or 2-day text back and forth. It's like kids. You don't have kids yet, but kids will text each other back and forth for a week, something that they can talk about in a few seconds if they picked up the phone, but they won't do it. And I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying there's a better way to do it. And there's a reason they say the old way is the best way to certain things like selves and certain things. People are re-looking at it. Everybody's like, go back to the old. It's the new. No, it's always been there. It's how we treat people is how we need to do it and moving forward. If we treat everybody well, you're going to do very well. All right. Anything else you want to add before we go?
No, I'm pretty good at it.
How do people find you? Do you want people to find you?
Yeah, people can find me. EnlivenedSpeakingInstitutes.com for the institute. That's about to go for an upgrade. On social media, Miroslav Petrovic, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, any of those. You can connect there. We can take it from there. Don't have any big pitch to give you.
That's right. And it's not about pitching. And your book's on Amazon?
Yeah, on Amazon, on Audible. Just look up in your local marketplace. You'll find it there.
So you did an Audible book of it?
Yeah.
And how did you do that?
Spotify as well now. It's amazing.
Did you do it yourself, or did you have is it your
voice?
I
did it myself, and then I got a proper audio guy to go through, clean it up, do the magic that they do.
Right. Did you just read your book, or did you because there's people who have books they turn them into almost like a podcast, like they'll have conversation about certain things as they're going through the book. How did you do your book?
No, I kept it pretty simple. I just did the traditional read through. I'm thinking about writing a novel at some stage soon, particularly about sales. And if I did that one, I think I would be a bit more creative with how I did it in the audiobook as well.
Yeah. Because I think that David Goggins is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he went like his first one. It wasn't like he didn't read the book. They did that podcasting, which it was different at the time because it was, it was not everybody was doing something like that. And I think it's just being unique of whatever you do so that you stand out more than somebody else.
What's the name of the David Goggins book? I'll check it out.
The first one he put out.
I'll just look up his first book.
Yeah, just look up David Goggins. But his Audible was him and his writer. So he had a ghostwriter. I went through the same company he went through. And so they talked about the book and writing the book and everything through and the parts of the book. And it was like an 8-hour or longer book.
Okay, I'll check it out. I like this. I like seeing innovation.
Yeah, I haven't listened to a second one, but that was the first one. Miroslav, thank you so much.
Australia quite often. One of the speakers here keeps bringing him. I think he's speaking again in the next couple of months. He's very popular.
Well, and during the summer, he's usually fighting fires. He's one of those guys he jumps in, parachutes in, backfield. It's like, dude, you're worth so much money. You don't need to keep doing that anymore, but he still does it. So
yeah.
You
can't extinguish the internal fire.
That's right. All right, Miroslav, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really appreciate getting to know you, and everybody go check out his stuff. And again, thank you so much for being here today.
Pleasure, Ed. Take care.